October 13, 2019, Dyer County, Tennessee. The third missing child in 8 weeks. And all of them last seen within 2 miles of the old McMillan farm. No one in Dyer County talked much about the scarecrow. Not since the first body was found. It was 2014. The boy's name was Caleb Harper, only 9 years old. He'd vanished walking home from school. They found his backpack in a drainage ditch, his sneakers placed neatly on the porch of his grandparents' house, like a goodbye no one saw coming. 2 weeks later, during a volunteer search of the fallow fields behind the abandoned McMillan property, a deputy stumbled upon something that shouldn't have been there. At first, it looked like a scarecrow, straw-stuffed shirt, burlap mask, arms nailed wide to a crooked wooden post. But then the stench hit. The scarecrow had a heartbeat. Caleb was still alive. Barely. And his mouth had been sewn shut. By 2019, the McMillan house was boarded up with rusting nails and police tape long since tattered to ribbons by the wind. Locals called it the Hush Farm. Nobody dared go near it after dark. So when 8-year-old Josie Barnes disappeared on a Sunday afternoon in early October, Sheriff Harlan knew exactly where to look. But he didn't find Josie. He found something else. Chapter 1, Crows Don't Sing at Night. Agent Eliza Warren of the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit stared at the folder in front of her. It had one word written on the tab, Dyer. Her phone vibrated. It was her boss. "You're going to Tennessee. Another kid. Another scarecrow." Eliza didn't need more details. She already knew the case. Everyone at Quantico did. "Who's the contact on site?" she asked. "Sheriff Lucas Harland. He'll meet you at the farm." She shut the folder. Outside her window, storm clouds gathered. Chapter 2, Hush Farm. The farm was every bit as cursed as the reports had made it sound. A collapsing barn stood like a rotting ribcage in the middle of an overgrown field. The old house, half swallowed by kudzu vines, had windows like dead eyes. As Eliza approached the porch, she saw a crude effigy nailed to the fence, 2 sticks bound in an X, a baby's bonnet tied around the top. Harland met her at the gate, looking older than his 49 years. "We found it again," he said, nodding toward the barn. Same setup. He didn't need to explain. Inside the barn, it was colder than it should have been. Dust floated like ash in the slats of sunlight that bled through the holes in the roof. And in the center of the space stood another scarecrow. Only this time, it was made of bones. Human ribs were lashed to a post with barbed wire. A skull crowned the top, smeared with something dark. Its eye sockets were stuffed with cotton. Eliza felt bile rise in her throat. "Dear God." "She's not here," Harland whispered. "Josie's not here." Then he handed her something wrapped in cloth. When she unwrapped it, her blood froze. It was a small pink shoe. Size 1. Inside was a torn scrap of notebook paper. In a child's handwriting, it read, "I can't scream here. He hears screams. He hates them." Chapter 3, The McMillan Boy. The McMillan farm hadn't been touched in over a decade, not since Roger McMillan was arrested for animal cruelty in 2007. The man was a recluse, known only for his strange rituals, midnight bonfires, and an obsession with silence. They'd found dozens of mutilated cats on his land. No charges ever stuck. He simply vanished 2 years later. Some folks said he moved north. Others believed he never left. Harlan believed something darker. "There's a root cellar behind the house," he told Eliza. "We never cleared it. Too unstable. But I think..." A noise stopped him. From the trees behind the barn came a rustling. Slow. Purposeful. Too big for a raccoon. Too slow for a deer. Then silence. The kind that eats your thoughts. Chapter 4: Scarecrow Logic. That night, Eliza couldn't sleep. She kept going back to the note. The detail about "he hates screams." The bindings. The mouth sewing. The symbolic use of silence. This wasn't just a killer. This was ritual. This was someone punishing sound itself. She opened the files again. 7 children. All under 10. All abducted in October. All had speech disorders. 3 were mute. 2 had stutters. 1, Caleb, was in speech therapy. And Josie? Selective mutism. He was choosing children who couldn't speak up. She scribbled in her notebook. He's obsessed with silence. He chooses quiet children. The scarecrows are warnings. Then she flipped to the next report, and her breath caught. The very first missing case from 2012 hadn't been a child. It was a woman. Her name, Miriam McMillan. Roger McMillan's sister. And she was deaf. Chapter 5: The Cellar Door. They found the entrance by accident. While Harlan was checking old storm drains for recent disturbances, Eliza stood in the tall grass behind the farmhouse. That's when she noticed a patch of earth that sagged unnaturally, like something below had given way. Under the brush, hidden beneath rusted iron bars and cracked concrete, was a cellar door sealed shut with a heavy padlock, the kind they didn't make anymore. It was so old, the metal crumbled when Harlan struck it with his crowbar. The hinges screamed as they opened. What came out wasn't a smell. It was a pressure. Like stepping into a room where someone had just been murdered. Eliza flicked on her flashlight. Stairs descended into blackness. Chapter 6: The Archive. The cellar was larger than expected, 20 by 20 feet, hand-dug, with brick walls that had begun to buckle under years of rotten silence. But the worst part? It was a library. Dozens of crates lined the walls, each filled with hundreds of cassettes, journals, Polaroids. Handwritten labels read: Noise Affects, Test 3. Baby Voice. Crow Mocking Trial. Miriam's Lament. Harlan picked up a dusty black cassette player sitting on an overturned milk crate. Should we? Eliza shook her head hard. No. Not here. That was when she saw the chair in the corner. Strapped with dried leather belts. Stained with something old and dark. And beneath it, clumps of hair. Child-sized. Chapter 7: The Bone Journal. Among the journals they took from the cellar, one stood out. Bound in cracked leather, with pages stitched crudely together using fishing line and something disturbingly organic. On the inside cover, RM. The handwriting inside was frantic, like someone had written it in pitch black, guided by memory alone. She wouldn't shut up. Even without ears, she wouldn't shut up. Words in her face. In her skin. In my sleep. I took the birds. I took their music. But she kept singing. I needed silence. I needed still. The Scarecrow watches. He remembers their noise. Their screams echo in straw. But he keeps them still. The field is still. The field breathes for me. Eliza's pen trembled as she underlined the phrase. The field breathes. Chapter 8, Witness in the Corn. A week after the cellar discovery, an old woman named Evelyn Moore came forward. She lived alone 2 miles from the McMillan property and insisted she had seen Josie 3 nights ago. Walking barefoot through the corn, she said, hands shaking. But she wasn't right. What do you mean? She was floating. Eliza and Harland exchanged a glance. Maybe you were dreaming, Eliza offered gently. But Evelyn was firm. You don't forget a little girl with no eyes. They dismissed her report. Until that night. Chapter 9, The Video. They'd begun converting the tapes. Most were distorted audio, scraping, whispering, bursts of screaming that cut off too suddenly. But one VHS tape was labeled in red marker. Oct 13_Josie_live_feed. It was shot on a static camera. Grainy. Flickering. The angle faced the scarecrow made of bones. In the background, wind stirred the tall grass. The field seemed to pulse. And then, Josie appeared. Naked. Dirty. Her eyes were gone, empty sockets staring directly into the camera. Her lips moved. But no sound came out. Behind her, something rose from the earth. Not walked, rose. A long, crooked figure wrapped in sackcloth, its limbs jerking like marionette strings, straw leaking from its joints. Its head was wrapped in burlap, with a stitched-on grin too wide for anything human. And on its chest, a familiar sheriff's badge. Pause it, Harland whispered. The face beneath the burlap, it looked like him. Chapter 10, Harland's Confession. Later that night, Harland came to Eliza's motel room. He looked pale. Broken. I didn't want to say this on record, he began, but there's something I need to tell you. About Roger McMillan. She nodded. Let him speak. In '96, when I was just a deputy, we got a call about a missing girl. Her name was Sarah. 7 years old. Last seen near McMillan's place. We searched for days, nothing. His hands trembled. But we found her. Not whole. In the barn. Roger was never arrested. No evidence. But we all knew. And I lied. I said we didn't find anything. Why? Because he said if I told, he'd take my voice. My wife's voice. My son's. Eliza frowned. That's not a threat, that's nonsense. Harland looked up at her, eyes hollow. My wife was a singer. Opera. 1 week after I opened my mouth to feds, she woke up mute. My boy stuttered so bad he couldn't speak till 10. You think that's a curse? I don't think. He pulled out an old Polaroid. It showed a woman's face. Mouth sewn shut with wire. Eyes wide. Alive. Harland whispered. Roger doesn't kill them. He collects their silence. And he's not dead. Chapter 11, The Breathing Field. The next morning, the scarecrow of bones was gone. Just the post remained. Snapped in half. But where it stood, there was now a hole. 6 feet deep. 6 feet wide. lined with child-sized handprints pressed into the soil from the inside out. They went back to Evelyn Moore's house. It was empty. No sign of struggle, except for a message scratched into the living room mirror. You can't whisper in the field. It hears. Chapter 12, In the Corn. Eliza returned to the farm alone. Harland had vanished the night before, leaving behind nothing but his badge nailed to the motel door, scratched across with what looked like claw marks. The sky was the color of rotting peaches as she crossed the threshold into the corn. The stalks whispered, bending toward her without wind. With every step deeper, the air thickened. Breathing became a conscious act. Like something unseen was weighing down her lungs. Then, she heard it. A child humming. 3 notes. Over and over. High and broken. She followed the sound. Chapter 13, The Center. At the heart of the cornfield was a circle, perfectly mowed, the grass singed black like it had been burned in a spiral. In the middle stood Josie. Or what was left of her. Her body was stiff, arms hung unnaturally low, as though her bones had been restrung. Her mouth moved, but no sound escaped. Her eyes, empty as twin pits. Next to her stood the new scarecrow. No longer just bones. Now clothed in flesh. It wore a stitched-together patchwork of skin, old and fresh, pink and rotting, laced tight like a quilt. The head was a sack, soaked dark where the eyes should be. The mouth had been sewn into a grin with barbed wire. It raised one long arm and pointed at Eliza. Her voice caught in her throat. She couldn't scream. She couldn't speak. She couldn't even think. Something filled her mind, not words, but sound. A high-pitched ringing. A shriek inside her skull. The figure began walking toward her. She turned and ran. Chapter 14, The Trial. Eliza didn't remember leaving the field. Only waking up hours later in the hospital. They found her wandering the highway barefoot, hands raw, her tongue black with blood from biting it. She couldn't speak for 2 days. When she finally could, her story was met with cold silence. The tapes from the Macmillan cellar? Gone. The journals? Burned in a processing error. The Scarecrow Post? Now a tourist attraction. Harland was officially listed as retired and relocated. No one had seen him. Josie's case was closed. Presumed deceased. No remains recovered. The report listed Eliza as emotionally compromised. Her final recommendation, do not reopen. She didn't sign it. Chapter 15, The Letter. 6 months passed. Eliza lived in her sister's basement in Knoxville, trying to forget. But the nightmares never stopped. Then, in January, she received a plain envelope. No return address. Inside, 2 things. A photograph of Harland, hanging from a scarecrow post. His eyes stitched open. His lips sealed with wax. A cassette tape labeled Eliza's voice. When she played it, all she heard was her own breathing. For 7 minutes straight. And at the very end, her own voice, whispering something she had no memory of recording. Don't speak to it. Don't look at it. Don't follow the child. But above all, don't listen to the field. The tape clicked. And something in her living room moved. Chapter 16, The Final Silence. Neighbors reported the screams around 3:17 a.m. By the time authorities arrived, the house was empty. No blood. No struggle. Just a mirror, shattered from the inside. And written across the shards, she sang. Epilogue: The Tourist. 2 years later, a family from Indiana passed through Dyer County on their road trip. They stopped near the old McMillan property, now fenced off, with warning signs posted by the local historical society. The father, amused, climbed the fence to take a photo with the legendary scarecrow post. His daughter, 7 years old, wandered into the corn, humming a tune no one taught her. She didn't come back. End.